Namaste, everyone. I am here to talk about some of the shifts that have taken place since meeting Guruji. Prior to coming to this path, which it's even more than 16 years now, it's probably a good 17 years that I've been on this path. Prior to coming to this path, Kundalini had already awakened, and this was just through very sincere prayer to be out of suffering, and as well as I did do some Buddhist chants that I had read about in a book, but I had felt this coming on for many years. I would describe it as pre-Kundalini type of symptoms, um, starting as a teenager. A lot of very vivid dreams. The floor would tremble underneath me, and I had a lot of pressure on my limbs. Um, so there was phenomena, hearing things even at a very young age. So, the feeling was there, and I just felt in my soul that there would be a point in my life when I would delve into this desire for freedom and truth in earnest. So in my 20s and things, it was, just a lot of praying mostly. Sometimes begging, I'll be honest, because there was so much suffering there from a very young age, heavy depression, trauma that had taken place in my um, childhood, that heavy trauma that left, at least in my being, felt to be a lot of wounds and things that I just desired at all costs to be free of. So in my, I guess it was even in my late 20s. Well, actually, it was more after my son was born. After having him, um, I just, part of what I felt is that I didn't want to transfer a lot of whatever I've gone through to this child. So I just sought to be cleansed myself in hopes that that may help. But it was, the primary thing was just to be cleansed and be out of this suffering. And so, when he was very young, I began a practice of meditation. And I had read some books by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I just started as being, very much in the moment as best possible, very tactile. Like now I'm sitting, now I'm touching, and now this feels this way, this is cold, this is hard. Not saying that, but just more the pure sensation of it. And sitting for a lot of hours meditating. I covered my eyes when I meditated. I meditated in graveyards. I was pulled to that. There was one near my place where I lived, and I went there a lot and was, in all kinds of weather. And this is when I had a chance. Of course, I had a young child and had to care for him, but when I had free time. And then Kundalini opened up, and it was very intense, and it brought out everything that was lodged in the subconscious, and um, all of the traumas, everything started really bursting up in ways that my body just, began to shake. Kriyas began to happen, which are spontaneous movements that, for me, it was really frightening. I felt like I was losing control of this world whatever control that I had was certainly a world or a persona that was in a lot of suffering. And, so it's ironic that someone would be afraid of losing control of that, but it was familiar, and this felt so unfamiliar, so out of control. And this went on, just a lot of intense phenomena, flooring depression, anxiety, fears, all coming forward in really, gosh, and again, I had a child to care for, and so, and work. I was a nurse at the time. It was hard to do it all. And I did not do so well at it. There were times when I had to take breaks from work because I was debilitated with Kundalini symptoms and depression and anxiety and pain, quite frankly, and illnesses that were just knocked me out. I did not, I struggled really to just find some kind of center and balance within this. Um, after, of course, seeing counselors, a lot of nonsense. Even I really didn't know anything about Kundalini. I barely heard the word, barely. And after some of it opened, I did get a hold of Krishnamurti's journal. And that was, I saw the word and I saw that he went through a lot of struggles, but that was calming in some ways, but it did not bring and a sense of balance, a sense of stability. Um, and certainly no one else that I was able to talk to brought that, which were energy workers. And I was never into that before, but, I got on the net and saw a few, and that was horrendous, actually. I went very much more off one. I don't know what kind of prayer he did. I was just shuddering. I was shaking. um, because you become so sensitive, so in tune with energies, that someone that's way off like that, even touching you or saying something, you just are thrown. And I would leave just so much worse. So it was really a struggle. I was having such a hard time. There were some yoga moves that began to open up where I was having this dreadful pain. And these spontaneous yoga moves opened up where I could literally, the body, I don't want to say I because it was not at all. These were spontaneous, bend in these shapes like a pretzel. Honest to God, I almost felt like you could levitate. I was thrown across the room. I was um, everything imaginable in terms of yoga moves. And this would go on and on and on. And again, I was alone at the time. So fortunately, when my son was around, these things, there was enough, the pure intelligence, something within me, I could, you know, um, that didn't happen or around people or in public for the most part. So, but these yoga moves were happening, there was, there may be within myself, there was so much pain, physical pain, well, mental as well. But, if there was just a thought of, oh, like my arm is in pain, the energy would literally go there. And I was just kind of in awe on how that was happening. It would go to certain points and it would take it away. And I don't want to say that I've been healed of pain since, because I've certainly continued with illnesses and pain as part of the journey so far, and debilitating pain and symptoms. But at that point, it took it all away. And I was elated for a while with that, kind of giddy even, and silly, and, like, wow, because it was just all gone, and I felt this lightness, and at times some stillness. And when I say stillness, just a blip here and there, and it didn't feel balanced, so it felt like it went to the other side a bit. And and then there was still fear, well, what if it happens again, all the things, all the games that people play within themselves. So life went on, and with a lot of these kriyas and things, and I just kind of, it was hard being around people and talking sometimes, because you couldn't, a couple times I would tell people what was going on with me, some closer friends, and one said, oh, you're gifted, and another got afraid and didn't want to talk with me again, or another said, you have a demon in your house. It was so outside of people's experience that um, it just was almost pointless trying to say something to them, and I always felt worse, like kind of, you're just alone with it. You're very much alone, and and have to still function. So it really was hard. And again, I became ill, and seeing a lot of lights and colors, auras. And when I was laying in bed, I'd get these visions that were this was before Guruji, crystal clear, vivid. People walking in the snow. I mean, you could feel the snow. You could smell it. You could taste it, and they had, I just will never forget this. They had very, these furry hoods on their head and colorful outfits, and they were walking along in this, in the snow-capped mountains there. I'd get these kinds of visions, crystal clear waters, and mountains, they would just open up when I laid down. And this, I was not asleep, I was fully awake. My eyes may have been shut, sometimes open. I could see these things. It was just like a window opened up, and you were living that thing. I mean, it's not like you just see it. In many ways, you feel like you're a witness, but you're also in it so sensually in every way. They just really ungrounded me. And then I would see lights all over, and red, blue, purple sparkles, auras on people. And I remember I was with my son. We went sledding or something, and it was up in the mountains. And that's when I saw my first aura. And I was, again, since I was in this kind of depleted state of spirit and mind, it was like another thing that was really hard. It felt kind of wondrous in a way, and yet it felt, there was a lot of unsettledness within me. I never felt like, aren't I great? Look at this. Not once. I'm not saying that was good, but to almost say, oh, now this is this. I really, because of everything happening, and I believe it was because it felt like everything, the trauma and everything was coming forward to be cleansed, as well as different ideations and fears and things all there. But these things were happening, and I felt very, very ill. So I I got in touch with Guruji online. She was in India at the time and said she was a mystic and she had completed the Kundalini journey, and was willing to help. And that was the beginning. And by coincidence, when she was in India, said she was coming to Seattle. Her daughter was here, and really in the same neighborhood as where we lived. So it was quite a coincidence. And now I can talk more about what it has been like after meeting her. And certainly prior to this experience, there was a feeling of being tall, short, big. You get these perceptual shifts. I really don't think the nod sound was there, the clapping, popping, there was ringing. I really don't feel like I have put everything in there that took place prior to meeting her. But it was all there, the whole package. So after meeting her, and this was right upon meeting her, there was a settledness. There was a settledness in reading her posts, calming. I felt like she understood the hardship of it, that no one else understood, due to traversing the journey. I was able to connect with her as a woman, as being a mother and raising a child through this. Not to say that was all that she could connect with, but that was something that struck me as well, and that she didn't have this easygoing life of, fairy tale life, which I certainly have not had either. So these things also pulled me there. But the main thing that hit was that underlying heart of feeling like she was sincere and knew exactly what she was talking about. And I heard what she was saying, and I could feel it. So I followed that, and I met her. I was lucky enough to have her come to me. I was certainly in no shape to travel at that point. I was kind of a pathetic looking thing, ill, thin, pale, shaky. So anyway, she just, it was a short meeting, and she started in right away with explaining. And I just, there's a lot of questions, a lot of repeating questions and wanting to keep hearing it was going to be okay for me, you know. And then the questions begin to die down. But, she spent a lot of time with me at first. I was very lucky. I was one of the first students here and reading books, non dual books, and opening up a lot to my consciousness that was not there before symbology, of the Hindu symbology, Christian symbology, mystic symbology, quite frankly. I can't even put it into one category, but it all came to the same core of how it points to freedom. And I was very grateful for that. I began to start getting better and more balanced. I went back to work, and I've had other illnesses that have come that have left me with, right now, unable to work due to some symptoms. But it's what she brought immediately was a fluidity to the consciousness where this is the main thing that I could describe immediately as feeling like the world was more distant, the concrete world almost moving away. Phenomena became more fluid, some of it quite beautiful with mantras, spontaneous songs, language, different languages of all sorts would flow out, prayers, discourses. And this happened for a good 10 years. And even sometimes in the groups when we were meditating, would just come. I believe I have some tapes of that. And they all had meaning. I really didn't understand them. And but the main thing, there was still lights, there was visions of mountains just crumbling, churches being burned, crosses burning, just buildings burning, whole cities burning, structures just being pummeled. And as those solid ideations just showing, they were beginning to crumble, or at least showing you this is where it's leading. Visions of snakes, lights, dreams that had a lot of symbology to them, of vehicles. This happened really even within the first year, months of meeting Guru, where things begin to shift in that direction. The main thing, though, that Guruji brought is not only the energy, the transmission of being around her. There was more settling, there was a balancing. In the heart center is an opening, an understanding of opening the heart, of surrender. These are huge. Opening the heart, surrender, practices that brought stability, tools that one could use in every moment to get through. Before here, I prayed a lot. There was no mantra I used. There was prayer. There was hope. There was begging. There was, and then there was the fear that wouldn't work. There was a feeling, a sense of God and that being there. But, when you're just running without those tools, at least for me, that's what still has been such a saving grace through work, through all the changes and ups and downs of life, is that steady mountain of Guru's presence, along with the tools offered and the heart opening that she's brought, in tolerance, patience, dedication, getting through suffering in a steady way without getting into that poor me story. And you do get through it. You do get through it. And this does not mean that hardships do not come even after meeting Guru. And I've been one that's been very, close in proximity to her. And still hardships have come and challenges are there very strongly. I'll be one to tell you. But, I'm still here and there's still progress. And through that, and I just feel like there had been, at least for me, no other path that would have brought this uniqueness of a original path and a connection, an intimate connection, an energetic connection that I could have found anywhere for me. Um, you know, and during this time, I've taken sannyas a couple, 3 times actually, and that's been a blessing. And have been celibate and have honored those vows for some time. It doesn't matter. And again, she's shown it doesn't matter what I wear. The head was shaved for a little while. Regular clothes, regular life, very, very normal life, very, very common life. Even a struggling life of the common person is what I've lived. And I feel that she has lived, and many on this path. We're just regular people. So, and all on this path, to be quite honest, not many. But, it's not something, and yet she's offered this to women, to take sannyas. That is something that would have never been offered to a Western white woman. And to just feel that that's part of what you bring into your everyday life. Again, another blessing that she's brought. To not feel like you're high up or low down or anywhere in between, but just to go forward until that persona. And also to have the discernment to know if those thoughts are running, if there's still a storyline, you're not done. And I feel like there's a lot of people that don't, so-called teachers, and they could be quite good teachers. But they don't point to that full dissolution of the ego. The other thing then, and I have spoke about visions, and there has been, with the messages and all those very crystal clear, beautiful messages with spirits on the other side that have come since meeting her. But what has taken place after and what's still happening, and I'll speak to, is slowing of body and mind and samadhi states that are more pronounced. And things do become more pronounced. At least for here, I felt like things have circled. They come to a center. They're slowing. There's not the non-dual state, and they begin to cycle again. So it's hard for me to say, okay, sometimes when you're in it, the cycling again about progress, and then boom, it comes again. So it's a matter of staying steady with it and continuing. There's still vivid dreams here. There's still some visions. There's still some messages. After the messages, there was the feeling of, and I can still get this if I choose. It's not something that I choose to engage as best I can, and still some messages come, But I just go right to the practices. I go right to all that's been given until that dissolves. But, where you could literally know anything you wanted to know within the universe would come. It would come in terms of pictures. It would come in terms of yes, no for here. It would come in terms of lukewarm, hot, cold, just hearing those things. And that could be accessed at any time, and still could be. And it's just something that, again, I live with at this time that is washing away more and more as all the phenomena, because that's not my main interest, is not knowing, having that type of dualistic knowledge. My desire is to be at peace and freedom, and that's what it's always been, and so I just continue forward. So the slowing has been very pronounced with the gaps in thoughts, the spontaneous movement, spontaneous writing, less chanting, there's less visions, they're murky at best, and sometimes crystal clear. And they do point to things of the world, what's happening in the state of the world sometimes. It's not a pretty thing. And I really don't speak about it at all very much, because I just feel right now that my main goal is stillness. And that is not it for me. And I'm glad that some of these, whatever has come, thank goodness for Guruji and being there to keep all that balanced and bring whatever has come for humanity, and that's the blessing. But for here, I just again pray to, I'm praying to be done here, and there is progress, there is the slowing, there is the, the turning points, and always that steadiness that Guruji brings, and there's the quietude, and there's the feeling of no me, and there's the feeling of the non-dual, and then there's the washing in again, and we just go forward, and again, I'm just so grateful for Guruji's grace. I just feel like there's all the misconceptions people have. I feel sorry for people that they don't take their time to really listen, because to get along on a path, one really, really has to open their heart, and they have to have a willingness, and they have to trust. And there's a lot of reasons to distrust now with all the mess that's happening in the world. But I can speak to this path and tell you it's been, the best blessing in my life. And I am one that I'm very leery. I have not gone to one other teacher, not one. I have never, even before meeting Guruji, I never barely read about any teacher. I didn't even know about Ramana barely. I'll be honest with you. I read Thich Nhat Hanh, and I came across, there was a Buddhist book, Tibetan, Living and Dead. There was another one with that. And I read a little bit of Krishnamurti's thing, but this was way after, Kundalini had happened. So it's not like it's one that I have been one to do a lot of looking around at teachers. I'm very strong at sensing energy in people that have poor intentions, or people that are not ones that, that would bring a goodness to your heart, or it's the best thing for you. And with Guruji, she's, it's the right path for me. It's a sincere path. It's an honest path. It's an original path. It works for those that are ready, that really are open. So, again, I'm just talking to those that look at this and have all their judgments about it. Those judgments are very painful, and they create disharmony within your own being. And it would be if you are really wanting something the best for yourself, you don't really know what's good for yourself. You're your own enemy, your own worst enemy, and that's the reality of it. Until this stuff starts rinsing away, and you have actually an experience of stillness, of balance, you don't know the difference. And so I just suggest to open up your heart to something that does seem to make sense, that resonates in your heart center, and just start letting down, letting go, and going with this, because we just need more of it in the world so badly. And, this is it. And I'm just, I've dedicated my whole life to this path. And it's been a lot of years, and I'm sure lifetimes as well, that I will go on, whatever it takes. So this is all I have to say for now. I hope it helps others. And I am so happy to hear of the ones that are continuing forward. And I do hope that you continue forward. And whatever light we can get in this world, we're going to take, because we need it. Thank you to Guruji, too, for always speaking the truth, and for being there and continuing forward and giving her life to this. We're very blessed. Merry Christmas, Guruji. Merry Christmas to all. Namaste.